Every man has wants. Every woman has dreams. But the world does not hand over its treasures because someone wishes for them. The universe is not moved by desire alone. It moves for those who refuse to settle for anything less than the life they've imagined. This is the first law of elevation. You don't get what you want. You get what you are willing to tolerate. What you tolerate becomes your standard. If you tolerate excuses, you will live among them. If you tolerate laziness, you will be surrounded by missed opportunities. If you tolerate poverty in spirit, in discipline, in ambition, then do not be surprised when it shows up in your bank account, your health, your relationships, and your destiny. The ceiling you place on your life is not imposed by the world. It is reinforced every day by the limits you refuse to challenge. A man may say, I want wealth. But if he tolerates disorganization, procrastination, and a weak work ethic, then he is lying to himself. What he wants and what he accepts are in contradiction, and the latter always wins. Life responds not to the vague hopes of the lazy, but to the definite expectations of the committed. If you live with people who make excuses, who tell you to, take it easy, who reward mediocrity and frown upon ambition, you are breathing in a culture of low standards. And until you decide that this is no longer acceptable, you will remain exactly where you are. Not because you are incapable, but because your tolerance for average is too high. And the moment you become comfortable with less than your potential, you lock the doors to greatness with your own hands. Every breakthrough in life begins the moment you say, I will no longer live like this. When the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the fear of change, the human spirit awakens. Standards rise not when you make a wish, but when you declare war on the smallness that's been living inside you. Look around at your life. The job you have, the condition of your body, the quality of your relationships, they are all reflections of what you've been willing to tolerate. If your finances are in ruins, there was a point where you said silently, this is okay. If your time is wasted daily on distractions, entertainment, and gossip, there is a part of you that has permitted it. And what you permit will continue. Nothing changes until you change what is acceptable. When you raise your standards, the world doesn't adjust immediately, but you do. You begin to walk differently. You speak with more purpose. You say no more often. You begin to eliminate the noise that once filled your mind and replace it with order, clarity, and intent. You're no longer satisfied with average, because average now offends you. You're no longer entertained by failure, because you know what it costs. And that internal shift sends a ripple through every part of your life. A man with high standards cannot stay in the same room as excuses. A woman who refuses to tolerate neglect will no longer allow herself to be mistreated. And a mind that will not tolerate weakness becomes a furnace of discipline. Life begins to shape itself around you the moment you say, enough is enough. I was not born for this. The uncomfortable truth is this: everything in your life that you dislike is something you've allowed. Maybe not intentionally, but passively. Through delay, through silence, through the refusal to draw the line in the sand and say, no more. You can speak all the affirmations you want, set all the goals you want, write all the dreams you want on paper, but until you raise your minimum, your life cannot exceed your maximum. Because life flows downward, not upward, until you build a foundation that lifts it higher. So ask yourself, not you want, but what you're currently tolerating. Ask yourself what behaviors, what patterns, what environments you have allowed to dictate your standards. Because nothing will rise until you do. And you will not rise until your threshold for the unacceptable becomes zero. Who you are is not defined by what you say, but by what you demand from yourself when no one is watching. Identity is not some mystical trait. You are born with it. It is the result of your habits, your decisions, your patterns of thought, and above all, your standards. A man becomes great not because he is destined to be so, but because he refuses to accept anything beneath the level of greatness. His standards sculpt his character, his outcomes, his legacy. If you wish to know who you truly are, do not look at your dreams, look at your daily life. Your identity is revealed in the way you do the ordinary things. How do you speak when you're frustrated? How do you work when nobody is monitoring you? How clean is your workspace? How punctual are you to your commitments? These small decisions, these daily standards, are the building blocks of your identity. They speak louder than your words ever will. Most people believe identity comes first day. Once I become successful, I'll act like a successful person. Once I feel motivated, I'll be disciplined. But this is backward thinking. True transformation begins when you reverse the order. When you raise your standards first, your identity must rise to meet them. Start acting like the person you want to become, and your mind will adapt to match your behavior. Excellence does not wait for permission. It is enforced. Standards are not about perfection. They are about consistency. Anyone can act like a champion for a day, but the man who becomes a champion in life is the one who makes champion behavior his default. He is not driven by mood. He is not swayed by convenience. He has standards, and they are non-negotiable. While others look for motivation, he follows principle. While others chase comfort, he demands growth. And in doing so, he separates himself from the average. Examine the people you admire, the ones who rise, the ones who endure, the ones who build empires or transform the world. You'll find one thing in common. They hold themselves to an unrelenting standard. They do not merely show up when it's easy. They do not perform only when it's convenient. Their identity is built on an inner law, a code of conduct they refuse to break. And when they fall short, they do not make excuses. They correct course, because their identity requires it. If you want to change your life, you must first change the version of yourself that you are willing to live with. If you can live with being lazy, you will stay lazy. If you can live with disorganization, your results will reflect it. But if you say to yourself, "This is not who I am anymore," and back it with action, then your transformation begins. Because the mind will not fight for an identity it does not believe it holds. But once you declare, "I am a person of discipline. I am a person of order. I am a person of purpose," and you reinforce it with standard after standard, then even your subconscious begins to align. Your environment, your routines, your physical condition, your relationships, all are mirrors. They do not show you what you want. They show you who you are. And if you want to know what your standards have created, simply look around. Are your friendships a source of strength or a source of weakness? Does your schedule reflect intention or distraction? Does your home speak of pride and order or chaos and neglect? Every one of these is a fingerprint of your identity. And identity is always anchored to standards. This is the quiet truth the world won't teach you. They will tell you to. Believe in yourself. But belief without standard is fiction. They will say, "Follow your passion." But passion without structure is a trap. The man who wins is not the one who wishes the hardest. He is the one who holds himself to the highest code, especially when no one else is watching. His identity is not given to him. He carves it day by day through the standards he enforces and the ones he refuses to break. Success does not begin with luck. It does not begin with talent or circumstance or some favor handed down by fortune. It begins with one thing: a decision, a real decision. Not a passing thought, not a hopeful wish, but a firm, unshakable decision backed by unwavering commitment. This is where transformation begins. The moment a man decides that he will no longer live beneath his potential. The moment he commits to burning the bridges behind him and moving forward with no retreat. That is the moment his future is born. Most people live their entire lives without ever making a true decision. They drift. They entertain ideas. They make plans and set goals. But their words are hollow because they are not backed by commitment. They try things. They see how it goes. They wait for the stars to align before they act. But the man who achieves greatness does not operate this way. He understands that indecision is the thief of opportunity, and commitment, relentless, all-consuming commitment, is the force that separates the dreamer from the door. Decision is power. A real decision cuts off all other possibilities. It eliminates escape routes. It forces growth. When a man decides that he will succeed, no matter how long it takes, no matter what stands in his way, his energy changes, his posture changes, his thoughts become concentrated. He no longer wastes time questioning whether he should continue. He already decided. All that's left is action. But a decision without commitment is like a seed without soil. It cannot grow. Commitment is the nourishment of your decision. It is the daily discipline to stay the course, the willingness to work while others rest, the refusal to surrender even when progress is invisible. It is easy to be committed when you are motivated. It is another thing entirely to stay committed when motivation dies and nothing around you seems to be working. That is where most people fall. They made a decision, but they never made a real commitment. Every person who ever achieved anything of worth came to a crossroads where the path forward looked uncertain, uncomfortable, or even impossible. And yet they pressed forward, not because it was easy, but because they had committed. They had eliminated the option to quit. Their identity became one with their mission. They had drawn a line in the sand and declared, "This is who I am. This is what I will do. This is the life I will create." Most people are afraid of commitment because it demands sacrifice. It demands discomfort. It demands change. And yet there is no freedom without it. The man who avoids commitment is the man who remains enslaved to his environment, his impulses, and his excuses. He is pulled in every direction because he has planted no flag in the ground. He lacks direction because he lacks decision. He lacks results because he lacks resolve. But the man who commits fully and without compromise becomes unstoppable. Life begins to reorganize itself around his focus. Make no mistake, commitment is not about emotion. It is about decision, repeated and reinforced through action. You do not wait until you feel like it. You do not wait until the conditions are perfect. You decide what you will achieve. And then you act in alignment with that decision every day, regardless of how you feel. That is the difference between wishful thinking and personal power. Power does not come from noise. It comes from resolve. Quiet, firm, daily resolve. There will be days when nothing works. There will be seasons when you question yourself. There will be storms and failures and defeats. But the committed man does not flinch. He does not flee. He adjusts his approach, but he never abandons his mission. His word is law to himself. He honors his decision not with feelings, but with persistence. He honors it not with talk, but with sweat. That is what separates the successful from the forgotten. The power of decision is what ignites the fire. The power of commitment is what keeps it burning. And until you harness both, you will remain at the mercy of circumstance, tossed by the winds of uncertainty, never fully anchored in your purpose, never fully rooted in your own potential. Your environment is not just a background, it is a mirror. It reflects the standards you've set for your life, the expectations you carry for yourself, and the boundaries you are willing or unwilling to enforce. You can talk all day about your goals, your dreams, your purpose, but if your environment tells a different story, it is your environment that speaks the truth. A cluttered space is the echo of a cluttered mind. A disorganized life reveals disorganized thinking. If you tolerate chaos around you, you are tolerating chaos within you. The man who has raised his standards cannot exist in disorder, not because he is obsessed with appearances, but because he understands that every object, every person, every routine within his environment either supports his elevation or drags it down. Look at your daily surroundings. The room you sleep in, the place you work, the people you keep company with, these are not incidental. They are the reflection of your internal decisions. Are your habits shaped by design, or have you become a slave to convenience? Are the people around you lifting your vision or draining your energy? Are you surrounded by excellence or engulfed in mediocrity disguised as comfort? The man with high standards will look at a toxic environment and say, "This is beneath me," not from arrogance, but from clarity. He knows that greatness is not only built in moments of focus, it is preserved in the conditions that support that focus. Just as you cannot plant a healthy seed in polluted soil, you cannot plant your future in an environment that poisons your ambition. Your standards are not just about what you do. They are about what you allow. If you allow distractions to surround you, your energy will fragment. If you allow negative people to speak into your life, your confidence will erode. If you allow low-value habits to eat away at your time, your future will be devoured piece by piece. And the worst part is this: most people don't even realize they're doing it. They live in environments they've outgrown, but because they haven't raised their standards, they stay. Examine your circle. Who do you spend the most time with? Who do they talk about? Do they speak of goals, purpose, discipline, or gossip, doubt, and limitation? Your environment includes people, and if your standards rise but your company remains stagnant, there will be conflict. And that's where most people fail. They lower their standards to preserve relationships instead of elevating their environment to match their growth. The most powerful step you can take is to design your environment to match the person you are becoming. Not the person you were. Not the person others want you to be, but the person your future requires. That means cleaning up what's messy. That means cutting off what's toxic. That means replacing what is convenient with what is effective. When you set new standards, you must align your surroundings with those standards. If not, you will be fighting against your own conditions every single day. Consider your routines. Are they set up for excellence, or are they held together by habit and hope? Does your morning begin with intention or reaction? Do you have a space that inspires focus or one that invites distraction? High standards demand that you become intentional with everything, because nothing in your environment is neutral. Everything either strengthens your purpose or weakens it. Your environment doesn't just affect how you feel, it determines how long you stay committed. When things get hard, and they always will, your surroundings will either support your discipline or make it easier to give in. The successful know this. That's why they craft environments where discipline is the default, where motivation is not required, because structure does the heavy lifting. A man who raises his standards cannot remain in an environment built on the foundation of who he used to be. If your surroundings don't reflect your vision, you are sabotaging your success before the day begins. If your tools, your space, your influences, and your relationships aren't aligned with your purpose, then every step forward is being taken with resistance. Change your environment, and you will feel your standards reinforced. Let it remain the same, and your progress will be constantly compromised by friction you have chosen not to eliminate. No man changes when he is comfortable. No transformation ever begins when everything is going well. It begins with a breaking point, a moment when the pain of staying the same becomes more unbearable than the fear of change. Pain is not the enemy. Pain is the alarm. It is the internal signal that something is wrong, that something must change, that your current level of living is no longer acceptable. Pain is the trigger. It wakes up the sleeping giant within. People talk about wanting more in life, but until they are confronted with the raw discomfort of staying where they are, most do nothing. They settle. They procrastinate. They tolerate. But when pain strikes deeply enough, when they've had enough of the excuses, the stagnation, the quiet misery, they finally act. They move. They commit. They change. Pain forces clarity. It strips away illusion and reveals what you've been avoiding. It does not ask for your permission. It demands your attention. But pain alone is not enough to sustain the journey. Pain can start the engine, but it cannot keep it running. Vision is the fuel. Vision is what carries you forward when the excitement of change wears off. It is the image of the life you are building, the one worth sacrificing for, the one worth fighting for. Without vision, you relapse into the familiar. Without vision, pain becomes a cycle instead of a breakthrough. It is not enough to be tired of where you are. You must be pulled by where you are going. There are people who feel pain every day and still never rise. They complain, they cry, they wish, but they do not build a vision. They think pain alone should change them. But pain without direction is just suffering. Pain with vision becomes purpose. The man who is tired of being broke must not only say, "I refuse to live like this," but also see with clarity, "This is the wealth I will create." The woman who is tired of being overlooked must not only feel the sting of rejection, but also picture herself in the position of power, dignity, and influence. This is the mistake most people make. They wait for motivation. They wait for inspiration. But pain is more powerful than both because it breaks through numbness. It shakes the soul. It wakes you at 3 a.m. and whispers, "You were not born for this." But vision is what gets you up at 4 a.m. Anyway, even when the pain has faded. Vision gives meaning to the grind. It turns sacrifice into strategy. You must honor pain by letting it teach you, but you must follow vision to build a new reality. Every person who has risen from rock bottom had a moment where pain screamed loud enough to awaken them. But it was their vision that carried them through the lonely nights, the invisible progress, the sacrifices no one else understood. Vision turns pain into a seed. It turns failure into foundation. It turns rejection into redirection. And vision cannot be vague. It must be vivid. It must be specific. You must see yourself walking in the life you desire long before it shows up. You must walk through that future reality in your mind every day until it becomes more familiar than your past. This is how you rise. Not by reacting to pain and then slipping back into routine, but by using that pain as a lever and lifting yourself toward a future you refuse to live without. There will always be resistance. There will always be struggle. But the man with vision does not stop when it gets hard. He expects it. He welcomes it, because he understands that the journey is not punishment, it is purification. The fire burns away what is weak, and what remains is forged in certainty. When the vision is strong, quitting is not an option. When the vision is clear, pain becomes fuel, not a reason to retreat. Most people use pain as a reason to shut down. The few use it as the starting gun. Most wait for someone to rescue them. The few build the ladder with their own hands, and they keep climbing not because it's easy, but because the top is already real in their mind. They have already lived there 1,000 times. They have already seen the life they're building in such detail that no obstacle can blur it. That vision becomes obsession. And when vision becomes obsession, no amount of pain can hold them back. Because now the pain of not becoming that version of themselves is greater than the pain of discipline, effort, or endurance.